got number 1 and 1. We've got Dave Syverson. Senator Dave Syverson has been in the Senate for, I believe, 18 years. And many, many victories in the Senate. A few obstacles he's had, and but he's done a pretty good job of being in the Senate. So we appreciate that he's going to be here today and talk. And we're going to have him come up in a second. And then, but I want to introduce Christiansen to you too. Christiansen has been in the Senate for about a year, and she too has had some victories, and she too has had some obstacles in this past year. She's enjoyed coming in under a Democrat-controlled Congress or Senate, and Dave Syverson has enjoyed both sides, a Republican-controlled Senate and a Democrat-controlled Senate. Whatever the case is, they're both good people, they're both good candidates, and they're facing an uphill battle no matter who wins if we don't take that Senate back in November. So with that said, 3 minutes for Dave Syverson, and then we'll do 3 minutes for Christiansen, and then both of them will stand up here and take your questions. And we're not looking for a debate, but you guys do get to do talking within each other, and it's fine. Okay, so Senator Syverson. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Well, a lot to cover in 3 minutes. Thanks so much for being here and for being involved with such a great organization that's making a difference. Most of you know me, and you know the work that I have done on behalf of families, on behalf of taxpayers, on behalf of job creators. As a philosophy, I'm a strong believer in smaller government is better government, that people create jobs, not government, that smaller government is better than bigger government. You don't spend what you don't have. Common sense ideas, but certainly something that is missing in Springfield as it is in Washington. It is important to point out, though, that there's not one challenge that we're facing that we can't overcome with hard work and ingenuity, what it took to make this country strong. You know, we have 2 primary choices as we move forward, and all of you have 2 primary choices. You can either accept the conditions as they are, or you can accept the responsibility to change those positions. You who are active in the Tea Party have chosen to change what has happened. You've chosen to step up. As I travel around the district and talk with people, it's interesting, the views that you have are not different from the views that the majority of other people out there feel, except for you've acted on it. The problem that we've had for so long is the issue of many people have good intentions, but they don't act on those good intentions. We just saw the video clip about what happened when people chose to act on their conviction as opposed to just believe those conditions. And that's why when I was first elected, I made that choice. Was I going to be a follower? Was I going to be a Me Too? Or was I going to be one that was going to step up and be responsible for making change? And knowing that there's a price to pay, and knowing the price that you've had to pay as just as members of the Tea Party. You've had to take time away from your families, time away from home to be here and being involved. You've taken the ridicule, you've taken the attacks, you've taken the hits on radio, on TV, you've been called kooks, because you led on issues that the majority of people believe in, but they're standing way behind you as you're taking those hits. When you look at my history, the key votes that we've worked on, 1995, if you remember, property taxes were going up fast at that point. I took the lead and sponsored property tax caps. That was something that local governments, you thought they were taking away their first child. But we fought that, and we passed it. We had to go county to county to get that through. Not easy, but we passed it, and we were able to limit the amount of growth of government. That next election, though, I can tell you those local government officials, they were not supporters of mine. We fought many of those counties, and Winnebago County, I was proud to say, was one that did pass it right away. In fact, Scott, I think you were on the board at the time and helped pass that. But I took the lead. Two other quick examples. The pension reform legislation that I passed, again, knowing what was going to happen. We fought, we got it passed, but again, at the expense of people who were upset, government officials that were upset that we passed it. If we would have passed all we wanted then, we wouldn't be facing the $6 billion hit. And last one, welfare reform. When I passed welfare reform, a lot of people were behind me, way behind me, but when you pass a bill that says we're going to limit how long you're going to be on welfare, we're going to limit how many children you're going to be able to be paid for, we're going to limit the length of time you're going to have. You're going to have to get a job, or you're going to have to go into job training, but you're not going to sit at home. And the price I paid for that was Jesse Jackson in my office protesting me. Millions of dollars spent against me in campaigns because I didn't just talk about it, I acted on those things to make a difference. And that's what we need in Springfield, our citizen legislators, those who are going to aggressively act on behalf of doing what's right and be willing to pay the price. So thanks, look forward to answering questions that you have throughout the forum.
If you would just stay up here. Well, you can sit over there while she talks, and then both of you please come back up.
It's difficult to push a senator off the stage, because, I mean, I'm just a Tea Party leader. Pushing a senator off stage is not a very enjoyable thing. Okay, so Senator Johnson, same amount of time, 4 minutes and 15 seconds.
Okay. All right. I was wondering. I thought that was a long 3 minutes. Well, good morning, everybody. Many of you don't know me, so I'm going to spend a little time talking about myself to explain to you who I am and where I come from, my background a little bit. I'm Christiansen. I'm the senator for the 35th District right now. I was appointed unanimously by the Republican Central Committee Chairman upon the retirement of Senator Brad Brzezinski. Brad retired last February, and I was appointed to fill out his term. Prior to that, I served as the DeKalb County Treasurer for 17 years. I was elected 5 times to that office. Actually, I have a long history here in Rockford. I was actually born in Rockford at Rockford Memorial Hospital. My mom grew up in Loves Park, and my grandparents lived up here in Rockford on Winthrop Lane for my whole life. As a matter of fact, somebody referred to the Rockford Star this morning, and my grandfather actually worked for them in their circulation department for almost 40 years. So we have a long family history in Rockford. Actually, I grew up on a farm outside of Lee, Illinois. How many of you know where Lee is? 350 with dogs and cats? Yeah, okay. And it was as corn, soybeans, and we had cattle as well. And you know, when you grow up on a farm, you really learn a work ethic. You learn that you have a job to do every day. Even as kids, when we were little, we all had chores appropriate to our age. And you knew you had to get up in the morning, you knew those chores had to be done, you knew your animals needed to be fed, and that people were depending on you to do those things and to do them right. And you couldn't say, oh, well, I just didn't do it. When, you know, in our family, you got up, you did your chores, you had your work ethic, and you worked very hard at that. And you worked until the job got done. There was no, okay, it's 5 o'clock, we're done now. It's you worked until the job got done. So, and then obviously I went to Northern Illinois University, got my degree there. I married a farmer/architect who's in the back of the room, my husband Jim. You want to wave, Jim? Okay. We've been married for 28 years, and we have one son who actually lives in Milwaukee. He works for Kohl's in their corporate headquarters, and he's doing real well, and we're very proud of him. We're active in our church, lifetime member of Calvary Lutheran Church down in Lee, and active in community service organizations as well. I've been in Rotary and the president of the Rotary Club, delivered Meals on Wheels. I serve on the Kishwaukee Hospital Foundation Board, the United Way, the Indian Creek Education Foundation. So we've spent a lot of years that we've been married, and prior to that, invested in our communities as well. I currently represent the 35th district. Many of you know we've been through some redistricting, so that makes life a little bit interesting. Currently, the district is all of DeKalb County, all of Boone County, eastern Winnebago County, eastern Ogle County, and 3 townships in LaSalle County. So we go from LaSalle County to the state line. Now, after redistricting, unfortunately, the Democrats did a number on us. They put 2 of us in the same district and changed the district around a little bit. The current new district is 75% of my old district. So I still have northern DeKalb County, I still have all of Boone County, I have eastern Winnebago County. It goes up around, this is the new part, up around Rockford, and around the bottom of Rockford is a kind of a reverse C. So we end up with Roscoe, Rockton, and Shearland, and then following 20 out west of the airport. And then to add some interest to it, they added all or part of 7 townships in Kane County as well. So that'll be our new district. I serve on the Education Committee, the Higher Education Committee as the minority spokesperson. I'm on the Public Health Committee, and I'm also on the Licensed Activities Committee. And I'm seeking this position because I think I'm a good fit for this district. I think that I have a heart for public service. I'm someone that shares your core values, faith, freedom, and family, and personal responsibility. I think people need to be responsible for their actions, and I see the hook is coming. So, the hook's out, okay. So anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to be here today. I appreciate your activism and stepping up and doing what needs to be done to make our state a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. You got 15 seconds more, Dave. That's okay. Okay, so what we can do is we can either move this out of the way. You guys can stand up here and take questions from everybody. Anybody that has a question, I'm going to ask you to line up over there. And then you're going to grab the mic and you're going to go ahead and ask a question of, and you guys can, if you have a question to answer, you can just step to the podium to answer the question. So.
Hi, I'd like to know if you do now or have ever used state funding or state assets of any kind to run emails, websites, snail mail, or USPS to communicate with / campaign to your constituents. I'm only interested in whether you've used public funds to operate the site or the mailer. Thank you.
Is that to both candidates?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, whoever wants to answer first, you can answer first. Is that thing working?
All right. Yes, that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. Yes, I have used public funds to communicate with my constituents. The Senate Republicans, the senators, are all get a budget, and they are allowed to use that to communicate with their constituents. For example, they had a questionnaire that went out this year, earlier, when I first took office. And I did that specifically because I needed to know, as a new office holder, what my constituents were thinking about. So, as a new office holder, you need to find out what your people want. And David has talked about this many times. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you want me to be doing. Tell me what you're thinking about. And we can't find that out unless we do that. So yes, we do. The Senate Republicans also put together websites for us and other activities so that we can reach out to our constituents, so you know what we're doing, and so that you can give us feedback.
And just as a matter of kind of, if we can just keep it past here and then step off the line, that would probably be the best way to stop moving back and forth. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We can't do very well just staying with the podium, though, so
I know.
probably more talkers. There's a number of things that you get to do as elected officials that are allowed by law, but again, when you're facing difficult times, when you're facing difficult budgets, and you can't pay your bills, you have to figure out how do you lead by example. I don't do that. Any mailings that we have done, we pay for ourselves. I do want to get information from constituents as well, and so we do those, but pay for those myself. Same with websites, same with Facebook. I set those up and we pay for those ourselves. We do telephone town hall meetings as well, where many times we'll call you and we'll spend time going over issues. Again, the difference is, even though the state could pay for that, I pay for that myself, because again, we need to lead by example, and if we're going to be spending state dollars at a time we can't pay our bills, I think that's inappropriate. So while it's legal, I don't do that.
Thank you. Next question.
Well, here's an issue upon which I know you are both diametrically opposed, and which makes it a good question. Illinois is considering a new revenue stream, or not new, but expanding an existing revenue stream, which is gaming. And I know you both have different feelings on that. What is your position on gaming as a revenue stream? What are you, and what are your arguments for and against?
He's being very polite and letting ladies go first. That's very nice. Thank you. It's not a secret that my opponent, Dave, and I have very different opinions when it comes to gaming and the expansion of gambling. I don't believe that the expansion of gambling is a reliable source of revenue for our state. Comparing reports now that have come out recently from the Illinois Gaming Board, comparing figures from between 2001 and 2011, I'll just give you a couple things to think about. In casino square footage, which is a report straight up from the Illinois Gaming Board, our casino square footage increased from 2001 to 2011 from 252,000, roughly rounded, to 336,000, a gain of about 114,000 square feet, roughly 45%. So we're saturated. We're saturated with casino square footage. Adjusted gross receipts, however, in that time frame, fell from $1.783 billion in 2001 to $1.476 billion in 2011, a loss of over $300 million, 17%. And that's with the addition of the new casino at Des Plaines. And finally, admissions, which is another market that they watch, is admissions dropped from 18.8 million to 14.8 million in that 10-year time frame, of course, loss of 4 million people, 21%. So even with more square footage, fewer people are gambling, and the state is recognizing less revenue. It's really not a reliable way to fund your budget. In addition, there are social ramifications, and those are my concern. Across the United States, 15 million people have a gambling addiction. There's societal costs. People have bankruptcies. One of my colleagues came to me and said he has often been called to a casino where, as a police officer, the people had locked their children in the car and went in to gamble. Another person came to his office and said, I don't know what to do. The man said, my wife has cleaned out our checking account, our savings account, our retirement account, and maxed out our credit cards, and all because of gaming. And he said, I don't know what to do. It doesn't do any good to divorce her at this point. But that addiction does lead to those kinds of things, divorce, bankruptcies. Who bears that burden? Who bears that cost of those bankruptcies? You and I do. When those people go bankrupt, they're on Medicaid and they're on welfare and they need help, and we're the ones that are paying for that. So I think that all the citizens of the state of Illinois should not have to be paying for that. And I think most of all, it speaks volumes when at the end of every casino commercial, they say in a real quiet voice, if you or a loved one have a gambling problem, call this 800 number, which means even they know it's a problem. So obviously, I'm opposed to that.
Sometimes as leaders, we are called to make tough decisions. And the choices that we get aren't always the easy ones. I think it was once said, when faced with two bad choices, always take the lesser. We are based in this community with a choice of a small regulated, taxed facility in Rockford or a large Indian casino 10 minutes north of here that doesn't pay taxes, that's going to have a water park, that's going to have a convention center, that's going to have hotels, that is going to take millions and millions of entertainment dollars out of this area. The issue of problems with gambling are absolutely right, which is why I've never, in my 15 years, been a supporter of gambling until the issue of Beloit came along. Gambling is here. Every day, buses leave Rockford. Every day, citizens drive from Rockford to Ho-Chunk or to Iowa, and they gamble and leave their dollars. Beloit gets this facility, a facility of that magnitude. It will have a devastating effect on Winnebago and Boone counties. Now, we make sure, because of the concerns, when it was mentioned that it's unstable revenues, I totally agree, which is why we made sure in this legislation that every dollar that comes from gaming can only go into one-time capital projects, building roads, building infrastructure, not going into feeding the size of government. Government's big enough. So let's take that money, use that money to actually help create jobs by building that economy. We share revenues with county fairs, 4-H communities, soil and water conservation districts. So the goal is, how can we make the best of a bad situation? And lastly, we do try to build in as many safeguards as we can. No state in the country has stricter regulations or more taxes on these facilities than we do. We even require facial recognition. If you're on the do not gamble list, you can't get into these facilities. If you do, the facilities are fined heavily. Aurora just paid over $100,000 in fines for allowing one person in that was on the do not list. Now, the Indians don't have any of that in Beloit, I can tell you. And lastly, we do tax these groups heavily. The current 9 facilities in Illinois pay more taxes than all 1,500 casinos in Nevada pay. So we tax them heavy. And so the choice in the end, not a good one, not a fun one, it comes down to, if you don't support the one in Rockford, then it means Beloit happens. Now, the other way, lastly, the federal government says if you build a casino that's a non-Indian casino, you're not, the Federal Bureau of Indian Affairs will not approve an Indian casino within 30 miles of a non-Indian casino. So it comes down to really who's there first. Again, lesser of two evils, but that's the kind of decisions that we're called to make in this position.
Pretty much sounds like we're all along the same boat, frame of mind, personal responsibility, choices in that. And I've talked with both of you about the Drano Act. I don't know if anybody's here tried to purchase Drano lately. To me, it's a pet peeve, as well as a sign of we didn't read the bill and we just voted what everybody else has done. Are we going to still do this, or what can we have assurance that we're going to read the bills and we're going to understand what the ramifications and what it's going to do to our individual liberties and responsibilities?
Thank you, sir. I'll start. There's a couple of bills that have passed lately that are difficult ones. And two things happen with bills. First of all, one is you can pass a bill. When the bill is passed, what happens then is a committee is set up, and they decide and pass all the rules and regulations, and they define what that bill does. There have been 2 issues that we've had to address. One was the issue with the Sudafed issue, where unfortunately young people were going to stores and buying up all the Sudafed they could off the shelves, and they were using that to produce meth. And it was becoming a crisis level in Illinois. People from other states were coming here, they were buying that all up, they were using it to make meth, and we were talking about it was growing at a systemic level. The state police came in, law enforcement came in, others came in and said, you need to do something. And so a couple of years ago, we passed, unfortunately, the rule that said if you're going to get certain kinds of those nasal things, you've got to sign for those at the pharmacy to try to stop that. Last year what happened is some gangs were taking certain kitchen products and they were developing Molotov cocktails with those, and they were using that to torch older women. They would wait till the elevator was about to close and they would toss them into elevators and burn elderly women with that, and it was kind of a gang initiation type of a thing. So legislation was introduced to say chemicals in certain products that are used in this way are going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to sign off and show who you are when you're buying those to stop that from happening. Now, the end result is the bureaucrats got involved in that and created a much longer list of products that they think should be on that list. And we think that list is too extensive. And so now what we have to do, like many other times, go back and do clarification language and tell the bureaucrats you went too far and reduce it back to what the original intent was. So but clearly it's gone too far. But it's not uncommon. I've passed my own bills and the bureaucrats have passed rules saying this is what the intent was. And so wait a second, I was the sponsor of the bill. I know what the intent was. So it's not uncommon for us to go back and do cleanup bills, and this is one that the scope is going to have to be addressed.
And I find it funny, you go buy beer or cigarettes, a lot of you can do buy a can of drink.
And Senator Syverson's exactly right on the process. And it comes through, and honestly, I need to point out, it passed both houses, the House and the Senate unanimously. And there were two specific women that were disfigured by this situation. And there were some rules in the law that started out saying if you're on the federal poison and caustic substance list, and if you put this product might cause burns, if those two things are regarding that same product, then they should be on the list. But like you said, bureaucrats get a hold of it and then they expand the list. I know there are already several bills that have been filed to repeal this and readjust it so that it isn't becoming onerous for our citizens. But certainly that's never the intent. You know, we go in there, like you said, with the intent of protecting our citizens from people that would harm them individually, and then we end up with a law that goes a little bit too far, and then we have to go back and adjust it. So I'm certain that we'll be all looking at that this upcoming session.
And one more thing I would say too, the Retail Association, the people who sell the products at the retail levels supported the legislation. So it wasn't like something that they were saying, this is terrible, don't put this on us. This was supported by the same groups that are now raising some of these.
My concern with the bill, though, is that Illinois is the only state in the country that's got this particular law.
Not even California?
Nope. Illinois is the only state in the country that's got this law, number one. But number two, you know, you can't regulate every level of morality. And what's happened is, in Nazi Germany, what happened was the exact same thing. They regulated every little thing that happened in every little business. And I'm not saying we're turning into a Nazi state, but this is where it begins. The law should never have passed. There should have been other ways to deal with that issue, and not this issue. Luther, go ahead.
On that note, clear is regulate this, then that steps into gun control and these other issues too. I mean, much of the state regulation.
Yep.
I'm going to get back to the first question. I received a mailing from you in the last week or so. You're saying that you paid for the printing and the mailing of it, or what?
Yes,
Yeah. Oh, what? Personally or through your campaign?
Either both.
Oh, okay. So, getting on to drugs, where did you end up on medical marijuana, which would have been a great revenue stream? Dave, yeah.
That was legislation that came up before, and again, It's a tough decision, but if there's anyone that has gone, that had a close family member who has gone through a terminal cancer, you know, the indignity that they go through, not just in the cancer, but when they're sick and they're sitting over the toilet and throwing up.
I understand that, and non-psychoactive cannabis antiemetic compounds have been available in Illinois since 1980 or 79. I'm talking about bringing in a legal, quote, legal, close quote, stream of drugs that would be sidetracked to in American households the way prescription drugs are.
Yeah. Well, like I said, what we were faced with is people who were terminally ill. This is not what California, you know, people like to change the names of things when they do things. This legislation was dealing with pilot programs overseen by the state police and the health department, dealing with just terminally ill individuals. And some would say, well, there are now new drugs coming out that will take care of some of that nausea issues, or it's just psychological. Well, you know what? When people are terminally ill, sometimes psychological drugs actually can still work. That's why they do hypnosis and other things. I guess for me to tell a person who is terminally ill, defined as less than 6 months to live, if they believe that something can give them relief, seeing again the people I've gone through, having a pilot program makes sense. I never supported, nor I did in the past, expansion of it or anything like California has done, where if you have a cold you can get a prescription. So it didn't pass. And again, as new drugs come out, this may be an issue that doesn't even come out in the future. But it was something that I just couldn't say no to those families that I was talking to that were saying, let me try something for my loved ones.
Thank you. Senator Johnson.
I wasn't in the General Assembly when this topic came up, but I do know that, first of all, it's federally regulated. And as a federally regulated substance, the feds are going after people who are selling marijuana right now. It's a gateway drug. It's a gateway drug, and it leads people into using other types of drugs. Heroin, meth, it's been mentioned here today. I know in California, now since they've made it legal, teen use has risen higher than it's ever been in other places. Studies have shown that many of the what people consider to be the positive effects of marijuana can be replicated by other drugs now, other synthetic drugs. And they've actually, in court cases, shown that there are no instances where people actually get more relief from marijuana than from other drugs. And so, you know, I'm concerned about unregulated and use of medical marijuana and expansion, especially in the light of the fact that it goes against federal regulation. I think that's inappropriate.
The concern also, just to add, the concern becomes doctors all of a sudden pop up out of nowhere saying, yeah, we're going to give this person the right to purchase medical marijuana, which is what has happened in California. And because you know, the laws, you can only make them so ironclad tight, but all of a sudden now Joe Blow comes along and says, you know, I'm pretty sick, and the doctor gives him a prescription for medical marijuana, and boom. You know, now you've got medical marijuana, everybody's using it, and everybody's sick, and they're really not sick. And so that's a big concern with medical marijuana. I'm not saying pro or con, I'm just saying that's a concern.
That's why we limit it to only terminally ill people. It's not a gateway. If you're 6 months from dying, I don't think it's a gateway drug to be using other drugs. And it's only for terminally ill people under control of the state police, health department. And so, again, it was a pilot program. Again, as new drugs come out, I am more than happy to look at that. It didn't pass, and so.
Ted, hold on just a second. Tracy wanted to ask.
I have one quick follow-up question on that.
Do either of you know annually how many people die of overdoses of marijuana? Okay, how many people die of overdose of aspirin? 750. 0 deaths from marijuana.
But then I would counter that and say, the potential, and I probably don't have statistics, but how many people die in driving accidents while smoking marijuana? And you could say, well, how many people die from drinking alcohol and, getting DUIs? But the reality is that marijuana impairs you. It does impair you.
Of course it does, but
and
I mean,
people drive their cars. How many? Nobody dies in an accident
but
if they're taking
somebody's
aspirin.
terminally ill, and you know this,
I agree.
and they're undergoing chemotherapy,
I'm
and
just
they're
giving you-
sick as dogs. They're not
I
driving.
agree. I'm just giving you the other side.
Yeah,
That's the other side.
I'm just saying.
So Ted, go ahead, please.
I was fine.
I was just going to say one thing about that, too. I think the law provided that we could, citizens could actually grow marijuana and have up to 6 plants. I actually have the analysis of the law right here. When it includes debilitating medical conditions, obviously cancer and those types of things, but Crohn's disease, agitation of Alzheimer's disease, here's one I don't know what it is, nail, N-A-I-L, patella, or treatment of those kinds of conditions. So there's some chronic conditions as well, not just the terminal
And
ones.
just so you guys know, we still got about 20 minutes for them to answer your questions. So we've got time. Go ahead, Ted, please.
The state of Illinois is heading toward bankruptcy right now, and one issue that I think us Tea Partiers should all be pushing is the eventual, maybe we could phase this in, the eventual scrapping of our government-controlled school system, replaced maybe by vouchers, which would save thousands of dollars per student. Per student, we would save thousands of dollars. Okay. So I mean, that's one issue. And then the other one is the bankruptcy of the state itself. Now the state itself is part of what's bankrupting us, part of it, and also killing us on property taxes, these government-controlled schools. And the pension system is another part of what's just destroying us. And the teachers' unions and the public employee unions, especially the teacher ones, are fighting tooth and nail against vouchers. They're a huge part of what's helping to bankrupt the state. Now, I had produced a pledge to be signed for a candidate. Now, both of you have taken money from both of these unions in the past. Senator Syverson had signed a pledge saying he will no longer take any more money from any public school union or teachers union. Senator Johnson opted not to sign that pledge, and I think there's a difference here. Now, that's not to say that you don't both have very good record on many issues, but this is one that I wish you both would sign the pledge and you both would vow not to take any more money from them, because Illinois is going broke, and if we don't fight back against the teachers unions and public employee unions and we're friendly with them, then we're just going to go completely bankrupt.
Ted, give one question for me, please.
So your responses to that?
Okay, thank you. Try to limit your questions to questions.
I had to give background or
No,
make any
thank you.
context.
Thank you. No, it's okay. It's okay. Thanks.
All right. Well, I can go first on this one. First of all, we can address the question of contributions from the teachers union. I have taken $500 from one teacher union when I first took office. I got a check in the mail, and that was it. That's all I've taken. I know that public unions have contributed to heavily, and other unions have contributed heavily to lots of campaigns in the area. Now, as far as education reform goes, obviously education is a major cost factor for our state. It's one of the most heavily funded things that we do. And as serving on the education committee and the minorities spokesperson for the higher education, education is important to me. I've been appointed to the P20 Council, which is on education, which is 47 members throughout the state. It's not just legislators, it's administrators, educators, and business leaders. And what their goal is to try to make sure that our students are highly educated, so we have a good workforce, and for when our job creation comes back, that we have a workforce that's prepared. And what the goal ultimately is to have 60% of our Illinoisans have either a higher education degree or an advanced certification. Right now we're at 40%. So we need to have an educated workforce to make sure that when our businesses are ready to hire, they're hiring our people, not bringing people from other states. You know, education is a good basis for a successful life, and we need to make sure our kids get the best education possible regardless of their background or their geographic location. So to that end, I have voted in favor and support the vouchering process so that children and their parents can, especially in low-performing schools, can decide where they go. They can go elsewhere and get the best education possible. I'm supportive of the charter school process and voted in favor of longer school days for the city of Chicago. One of the things that I thought was amazing was because of the Chicagoland shorter school days, that the kids, when they ultimately graduate, ultimately end up with, it was mind-boggling, 3 years less education than the rest of the state because of their shorter school days. I'm supportive of homeschooling. I think that it's important for parents to have the ability to decide that they want to school their children at home, to direct their curriculum and to direct their education. I think that's a wonderful opportunity. As a matter of fact, I found out on my first day in the Senate how wonderful homeschoolers were. One of our other Democratic senators had a bill that would require homeschoolers to register. And my first day, I walked out to head to my first committee meeting, and the Capitol was so packed, I literally had to climb over people in the hallway to get to the hearing room. And it really showed me the dedication and the commitment that homeschoolers have to their way of educating their children, and I've been very impressed by that and very supportive of that.
So, you know, I'm trying to keep it to 3 minutes. That's, you're at 4, so.
Okay.
I apologize. Just
right.
wrap this question up and we'll move on. I haven't said anything yet, but it's.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you.
Was there another part?
15 trillion, or the $13 billion debt that the state of Illinois has, plus another $8 billion that comes from various.
All right. Well, we've got some substantial debt, and I don't know if I can cover that in 15 seconds, but education is very important to us, and I think that that's something we're going to have to work really hard at. We are going to have pension reform. That's an enormous impact to our budget. We're $85 billion in the hole. We absolutely have to have some types of reform. We have closed some loopholes on some of the outlandish pensions, where we have to make sure that we have reasonable pensions. We have to have sustainable, pension systems have to be sustainable, they have to be affordable, they have to be fair, and I think that that's important.
Thank you.
I'm surprised if I ever had gotten a contribution from the teachers union, because I've got the luck of having more teacher union monies against me in campaigns than any other legislator in Illinois. So that
I
must tell
apologize
you,
if I was mistaken about that. Sorry about that.
that must tell you that, again, it's not just about being opposed to some of those things. It's when you're proactively, you get target for it. So whether it's homeschooling, which, talk about supporting it, I have supported it. My wife and I actually homeschool our son. We talk about supporting private schools. We have supported that. Competition is a good thing. Vouchers are a good thing because it creates competition, and that's a good thing. The idea that the state now wants to come in and regulate homeschoolers and regulate private schools, they want to change because we're having so much success. When you get homeschoolers graduating at higher numbers and more likely to go to college, when you get homeschoolers winning the national spelling bees, and the state wants to regulate them, really? It's something, but it is a major battle, because what's at stake is hundreds of millions of dollars that they see would be coming to them if they could force everybody back into public schools. It is a major issue that we have to be in the forefront of, but be prepared to be at some, hit hard, because they have so many resources.
Well, I think that the pensions in Illinois have, over the years, grown. They've been negotiated with the unions, and they have gotten bigger and bigger. And Illinois has been left paying the bill. citizens of Illinois blessing paying the bill. Now, I think that, to be fair, I think some of our teachers feel, and other public employees, feel a little bit vilified. I've had a number of people call me and say, I'm not getting $150,000 a year, I'm not getting anything remotely close to that. And they're a little bit sensitive to that. And so there are some people that are earning some reasonable pensions. But there are also some instances where they're outrageous, frankly. And we closed some of those loopholes in this last session. You know, I think that what we have to do is we have to reform the pension system that we are existing under right now. We have, we've already changed the pension system for people coming into it after January 1st, which lowered the benefits, raised the age, those types of things. And we're going to need to do that again for our current employees. We're going to have to do some type of reform, whether it's Senate Bill 512, which is out there, or something else, where it's to sit down with the people that are involved and affected, to get all the parties at the table, to have some conversations, because I think to begin with, and when I first took office, which is not quite that long ago, got an enormous backlash from people saying, "Don't you dare touch my pension." And I think I've heard Senator Syverson say the same thing. It's been the single most issue that I've heard about at any point in time. I think that those people are now understanding that something's got to happen. Because the problem is, if it doesn't happen, that pension system is going to fail, and they're not going to end up with anything. So they understand that they're going to have to come, and that there is going to have to be reform, and we do need to make those changes so that we can have a sustainable pension system that we can afford, and that's the big thing.
I hate to do this to you, but we're running really late, so we have 2 more questions. Dave, please take your chance at that question, take your shot at that question, and then we're gonna do more quick shot kind of answers here.
Just real quick, I think you know where I am. I started working on this thing in 1995, and talked about it ad nauseum, and took the price for it. But it wasn't until the Tea Party people, it wasn't until the Tribune and a couple newspapers decided to stay on this thing and keep gnawing at it, that it finally forced Democrats to have to join us in voting a bill, which they hated to do, but that shows one of the successes that you have had. Because it can't be one story in the paper, it can't be one phone call, it's got to be that constant going in their face, in their face, in their face. You did that. We've made a small step of progress. We need your help to make it more dramatic, but it's going to be a battle. Look what happened in Wisconsin. We want real changes. That's what we're going to be up against, and so we're going to need you to have our backs.
I've read somewhere that college professors are making $300,000 to $400,000, some of them, and administrators in universities. If that's true in our state, I don't know that it is, but if it's true, they're state paid, would you be willing to put a cap on all salaries, state working salaries of $150,000 until our state budget is balanced? Would you support that?
That's a good question. It is a tough question. I think that I would support some type of cap on salaries, and particularly until our state is back in good financial condition. I think the one thing that we need to bear in mind is, you see, obviously in the newspaper you see the highest salaries. The other thing that you need to think about is, what is the background, the education, the training that some of the people that have the big salaries have. And I'm not defending necessarily administrators. I'm talking about perhaps a doctor who is teaching at the medical school, U of I Medical School. They obviously have higher training and could certainly have a different salary in the working privately. So I think that I think that's a great idea to cap the salaries, but I think we need to keep those types of people in mind as well, because they're kind of in a different situation. But I think that's an excellent idea.
It is the salaries. People should be paid good if they're exceptional employees, but it's gotten out of control. We all have to make sacrifices, just like taxpayers had to make sacrifices. I have sponsored in the past legislation that reduced our pay. And last year, we were able to reduce our legislative pay by 10%, so we can lead by example. The government salaries are out of control at the university level. These are for professors who are teaching 9 hours, which we tried pushing legislation to make them teach 12 hours, which that alone would be a huge savings. It has to change. I've had legislation in that would cap pensions at no more than 100 or 150,000. The idea that we have right now, I think, 3 people in Illinois whose pensions are over $1,000 a day, over $365,000
That's
a year.
wrong. That is
wrong. And so everyone's got to sacrifice to get through this. Everyone at every level of government needs to talk about paying more and taking less. That's how we get through these problems.
That's right.
And so
That's right.
we should be asking everybody at every level to look at
Will
not just
you
saying
sponsor
either.
that legislation? That was my question. Will you?
Oh, absolutely.
And support it? Okay.
We've worked on it in the past, so I agree.
Last question to Mark, but real quick. You know, when I hear this, I hear duplicity. Okay, I hate to say it to you guys, but I hear duplicity. Senator Johnson, you're saying, well, we want teachers to have advanced degrees, master's degrees, and so on and so forth. I paid for that master's degree, number one. But number two, if you want them to have master's degrees, they're going to demand more money from taxpayers. And guess what? All these teachers are highly educated, and guess what? They're still not educating these kids. So something else has got to be done besides just saying, well, let's give them education, let's throw money at it. Those are not the answers anymore. We've got to go away from that.
I don't believe I said that the teachers have to have additional education. I said our children have to have
Well, you were talking earlier about teachers in not higher education. You were talking earlier, you said that teachers should have post-secondary education, which master's degree, and you said only 40% had master's
Right,
degrees?
no, I'm talking about the citizens. I didn't say the teachers do, I said the citizens. The
Okay.
goal is for the citizens of Illinois to have that higher level of education, not just the teachers.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Mark?
Thanks. At one point, I sponsored a resolution to end all pensions for elected officials, whether local, state, or federal. And, I hope you guys support that. I appreciate you being here. But the question that I have is, I'd like to know what we're going to do about the tollways. A lot of my constituents, when I was 9 years old, I remember my parents saying, hey, it's only going to be for 9 years, and we're going to get these tollways in here, and we're going to have a lot of business. Now, I'm 57 and a half years old, and my tolls just doubled, even though I got the I-Pass. Most of my constituents, because of the unemployment that's been in this area, most of my constituents are driving, through the suburbs to work. And it's just a big burden on them. And trying to fix the problem, doesn't seem to help. When I go to some of the southern states, or some of the other poorer states that don't tax as much, the roads are in perfect condition. My wife laughs at me because I'm saying I can't find any potholes. And I've even been in Europe, up north, where there's no potholes, so it's not just the weather. So I'm wondering what you guys can do about, keeping business from leaving Illinois. The truck drivers want to go around us.
Thank you, Mark.
I was very upset about them doing that. They did that in a very fast fashion. Unfortunately, the way the tollway works is the governor appoints that board. The board is independent. And if you notice, they passed that increase in the shortest amount of time possible before there could even be a legislative response to what they did. And so that in itself is unconscionable that they would do increases without input from the public. We're going to continue to find ways to have more oversight with the tollway. I sponsored legislation a few years ago that put independent auditors in the tollway, and that's why I remember a couple of years ago we started sending some of their people to jail. That's because we started uncovering things that were going on and sending those people to jail. But this toll increase, this last one, was unconscionable, and this money is going to be used for Chicago. It's about improving the O'Hare and runways around O'Hare. It's got nothing to do with helping us out here, and yet they want us to pay for it. That's what makes it even more unconscionable. And we have to come up with some kind of a legislative response to change those tolls to say, those people who are using it, if it's going to be a user tax, those who are using it in O'Hare, let them pay for it. Why do we have to pay for the O'Hare expansion?
Thank you. Christine, you want to give a wrap response, and then I'm going to ask both of you to take a 1-minute segment to wrap it up and make your final pitch. Go ahead, you can respond to the tollways.
Okay. Well, and that toll increase happened just shortly after I took office. I got a lot of phone calls about it too. And, you know, the first thing I did was picked up the phone and said to Springfield, what's going on about that? What can we do about it? And the answer was, there's really nothing you can do about it. I said, what do you mean there's nothing I can do about it? You know, you don't want to be arrogant, but you're like, okay, I'm a little state legislator. There's nothing I can do about the tollway. And they basically said, no, they're an independent board. Independent board, they make their own decisions, they have their own process, and they can raise the tolls if they want to. And you know, we encourage them to have public hearings, and I made my displeasure known with the amount and the fact that they were raising it all in such a terrible economy. But I think that one of the things we need to take a look at is changing that from being a gubernatorial appointment. I think the legislators should have some control over that, should have some say over it. It's one of the taxes that their citizens are paying, and we should have some say in what happens with that.
I got to cut.
One quick comment.
Okay.
Are either of you have the cojones that get rid of the tollway authority, get rid of the toll road? By God, I was the same age this guy talked about when they said, oh, this is just short term, they're going to be free roads in no time. Well, I want to see the damn free roads. Get rid of the toll authority. All that is paying off all the politicians in Chicago. That's what the money is used for.
I think it's more. I think he's making more of a statement to you guys than really asking for a response. So,
will you vote to get rid of the tollway authority?
Yeah, let me just
and the toll road.
Yeah, let me
Answer that. Simple.
Yeah, let me just quickly say why to eliminate that would, on a short term, would be a disaster for you, because what's going to happen is there's $11 billion that are owed, and the cost of maintaining all those Chicago tollways would all be borne by you, because it all would have to come out of the state's road program, which means the pot that we get that for our roads locally will all be diminished, and Chicago would get most of that money. So, one, we'd have to find a way, raise their gas taxes in there, do something to have them pay for it, but otherwise, they're going to make, if that gets put into the road fund, who's going to pay off that $11 billion of bonding debt that they have?
okay, so let's wrap this up. 1 minute each, please. Tell us your final minute, and then we got to move on to the second candidates. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me this morning. I believe that in this country we all have the opportunity to pursue our dreams, and that government should not stand in our way. And that's what I've seen with the members of the Tea Party, who have a simple set of ideas, living within our fiscal means, preserving our personal freedoms, protecting our free market principles, all things that made us the great country that we are today. And as you heard this morning, I share those values. I believe in lower taxes, rolling back that tax increase that we just got hit with, the things that are driving businesses out of Illinois. I believe we need to tighten our belts, and I think that we can do it. We need a balanced budget. We need to pay our bills on time. We need to not borrow any money. We need to stop spending money that we don't have. We expect our citizens to live within their means, and I think that we as state government need to be a leader in that as well. We need to live within our means. I believe in less regulation of our citizens and the power of a good education so that our kids can compete not only locally but in a global economy as well. I believe that our Second Amendment rights need to be protected, and I believe that we need to protect our most vulnerable citizens.
Thank you,
and our elderly.
Christine. Yep.
And I would appreciate your support and your vote on March 20th.
Thank you very much, Christine. Senator Virginia.
Thank you again. As you know me, you know the work that we've done over the last 15 years. I have tried to be proactive, just like you have been. While we may not always agree on every issue, on the global issues, I think we are. And I'm willing to stand up and take the hit and take the price be attacked year after year. Things like being attacked that I want to put women in jail because of abortions, and I want to put women in jail because they're not getting their drugs that they need. I take the attacks for taking the lead on these issues. I've tried to lead by example. Never accepted pay raises or cost of living increases. I donate those to charity. You look at the legislation that I've sponsored, you know that I am aggressive in representing families and taxpayers. It's not enough to talk about what you're going to do. You've got to be able to get out there and actually do it. And I'm going to continue to do that, just like you're going to continue to keep representing families. If we do that, our best days are yet ahead. We'd love to have your support on Facebook, or you can email me or get our newsletters. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so both of you, if you could just stand up here in the front, we're going to ask these questions. If you want to be in line to ask a question about county issues, please do.
This is to both of you gentlemen, of course, and my question is pretty simple. It was brought up earlier that a voucher system would save literally millions of dollars in both the county and in the Rockford area. Will either of you or both of you support getting rid of the public school system and going to a voucher system for Winnebago County? Very simple.
That is the subject of the day. My answer is simple, absolutely. And let me go a step further. Property taxes need to be thrown out. You know, we fight trying to equalize them. You can't. Now you're in a down market. People are seeing their taxes go up. That's why at press conferences encouraging folks to protest. 7,800 this year. It's something that's long overdue. If we go to a local income tax, it scares the devil out of me to think of money going to Springfield, that we might get, you know, a few cents back. But we have the infrastructure right here to do a local income tax and get rid of that system. Voucher, absolutely. Paying performance. A fellow that was just here from the Harlem district out in the east mentioned that, you know, unfortunately, when he was hired, he told him, if I can't raise grade point averages and can't produce within 5 years, I'll fire myself. And he brought the staff and the teachers in. This is a 10,000 student district in Harlem. And told all of the staff the same thing. I've made a commitment. If I can't raise these grade point averages and get the kids learning again, I'll fire myself. And by the way, I'll be the last one fired. Strong message, strong message. So they're actually over half of those students are going on Saturdays. But if they don't produce, teacher-wise, they're not hired back. A voucher system, pay and performance, do our system, our free enterprise system. Pay the producers, but frankly, we have teachers, they're not bad people, but we have teachers that can't teach. They need to do something else. I might add, we have some judges that aren't too swift either, though.
To max it out to say we can eliminate the public school system, obviously that won't happen. But to offer a voucher system, I think that's a great idea. When I was married for 20 years, I have two grown daughters. We homeschooled for a number of years till they were about, somewhere around 8th, 9th grade. We then decided to put them in schools. We checked out the public school system, devastated. We went there, it was chaos. I said, how can anybody learn in this environment? So I think our public schools are just atrocious the way they're handled here. And the reports that you see in the news all the time about how the grade averages are down and how our schools are failing and stuff like that. How many superintendents have we gone through? I mean, we get superintendent after superintendent. They get exorbitant salaries. They don't do the job, and then they move on to another city. It's a renter's market, basically, for the school system. Yes, we need vouchers. I would be thoroughly in favor of that. And I don't think I would take 8 years to finally say, yeah, I want to do something about it.
Just off the intersection of Harlem and Perryville, we have a sign for Barry Soetoro, the now President of the United States, bragging about how he put a lot of money up and taking a great deal of credit for it on this large, I don't know, 10-foot square sign. I'd like to know what you gentlemen either have done or will do about spending money on signs to tell the public who their incumbent politicians are that represent the district in which road projects and building construction projects are occurring. Thank you.
Well, I will say I haven't seen that particular sign. I'm working on getting my own signs out. They're in the lobby, please. Hopefully you take one when you leave today. I think our road projects have run amok. I think we're spending money where we don't need to spend it. And I hope I'm addressing your question. If I'm not, you'll follow up.
Yeah, publicly paid for sign, publicly erected sign to advertise the incumbent politician.
Okay, I think that's wrong. I think that's just as wrong as the Blagojevich iPass system. I mean, they took them all down finally after he basically was removed from office. No, public money shouldn't be used to advertise our candidates, whether they're in politics right now, they're in position, or if they're running. It shouldn't be done that way. Public money is for the public use, and I think the public money for roads has been misappropriated. I see us putting in roundabouts when we can't fix our potholes. It doesn't make any sense to me. And a roundabout at North Main and Auburn Street, I'm sorry, that's just not that busy of an intersection. Why is it critical there? Why is that a test? I spent 6 months in England, and I saw roundabouts. And yes, they can work, but they take up a lot of space, and there's a long learning curve. And I did talk to a truck driver who has a semi. He says, you try negotiating a semi in a roundabout. He said, it's near impossible. He says, crazy. So why are we spending the money to put roundabouts in when we've got street lights that don't work, we've got street lights that are not aligned, we've got intersections that are dangerous, we've got a lot of things we can address with that money and make Rockford safer roads. But yes, we should not be publicizing our candidates and our elected officials with public money and public signs. Totally wrong.
I absolutely agree with Mike on that one. That's correct. We stopped that practice, frankly, in the county. And I do want to say something about, first of all, 8-year education. We've had that in our legislative package going back to the mid-80s. We just can't get any legs on it in Springfield. That's the issue. Who's in control down there? We took $40 million of the county money when I took office in 2004, parlayed that into $120 million worth of projects. And that's thanks a lot to the county board. John, Jim, and John were all on at different times throughout that. And what we do, partnerships, we actually have private developers paying for the roads. That had never happened before. That's how we were able to do it. I absolutely think that's wrong. Everybody knows who's in office. They don't need their name by the road to determine that.
Sorry, Scott. Let's see. Before I ask my question, could I have a show of hands of people who went to the on the road trip to Springfield on April 15th? April 15th? Thanks. Well, I want to again acknowledge and thank Scott for his generosity in bankrolling the bus for the trip in. Okay, well, my question relates to something that might be hard for Mr. Castronovo to weigh in on.
Go for it.
But, as you know, there's been some animosity between the sheriff and Aaron Booker. And as you may also know, next week, in all probability, he'll be filing a complaint in federal court against the sheriff's department, some people in the sheriff's department individually, and perhaps the county board and county board members individually. And that'll run its course. But I guess my question relates to how tax dollars might be used, or how their tax dollar use could be prevented from paying the defense costs for people sued individually.
How do we, could you rephrase that? How do we avoid defendants?
Yeah, how do you avoid, what's the process for blocking taxpayer dollars being used to pay individual defense costs?
Well, that obviously would take, again, we're in the state law, and as you know, county government's an extension of state government, so, but that is a worthy notion, certainly. Not only that, how about these frivolous lawsuits, those that lose, maybe they ought to be compensated. and not throw that on the taxpayers as well. In that specific case, that's a merit commission that's outside the county HR. Maybe that's something we really should take a look at.
I think he's talking in particular, though, Chairman, I interpret that as if Sheriff Dick Myers gets sued, is the county going to foot the bill for defending him? Yes or no?
Well, at this point, that's the setup. The state's attorney is the attorney for all electeds, and that's the process. So, but that has its own merit commission that's outside county human resources and the policies and profession, et cetera, we have there. So, frankly, I'd like to see that combined. And if Abe Lincoln were walking Illinois today, he wouldn't recognize much, but he would recognize county government. You should not be electing all of these different positions. If they're administrative functions, appoint them and put somebody totally accountable for that position or that person.
Okay, so then there's a lawsuit that has been filed by James Kidd and Matt Ashman, which is in federal court and is moving forward. And they didn't go through the merit commission, they were just fired by the sheriff. So in that case, and I haven't seen their suit, so I don't know who was named individually in that, but I believe some of the command staff and the sheriff were named individually. And in that case, would county tax dollars be used to fund their individual legal defense costs?
Well, again, that's the state's attorney, that's the law. They're the lawyers, and they would handle it. So you're absolutely correct. They're paid by a taxpayer. Okay. That's a state employee, by the way, the state's attorney.
Yeah, let me just continue that line of questioning, because this is something that I am really passionate about too. So you're telling me and us that if Dick Myers gets sued and his underlings get sued as individuals, as persons, for harassment, that the state's attorney is going to go into court, into a civil court, and defend them in a civil court? Is that what you're telling us?
That's true. Now, depending on the case, they can be civilly done as well. That could be outside of that purview.
Okay, because
Right.
because I don't see this,
with a different one.
and this is probably outside of your ability to control, but I would see it that the state's attorney is elected by us. Okay, he's elected by us. I don't think it's his job to if we, the people, are suing somebody, why would the state's attorney? Why would he be opposing the people? Is the question. I mean, this state's attorney can't even get it straight that he was elected by us, and I mean, he lets murderers go. He can't even file the deadline for a murderer. This is what happened. A murderer in Winnebago County, just within the last couple days, was let go without trial because State's Attorney Briscato couldn't file the charges in a timely enough manner, because in the United States, you are given a right to a speedy trial. Briscato blew the deadline, and a murderer has walked free from Winnebago County because Briscato
was charged with murder.
Yes.
David, exactly what happened was yesterday, he was a killer, and once you're charged and you're in court, you have to be tried within 120 days when you're in custody. He was in custody, and they, as the State Attorney's Office does, the continuance mentality, they kept continuing, and blew the 120 days. They forgot about or disregarded the 120 days, so they continued it beyond the 120 days. Defense attorney made a motion to dismiss, it was granted because they did not try him within the 120 days as required by law, and so he did walk. And that is with prejudice. Understand, that is with prejudice. He can never ever be charged again with that murder. He walks.
Thank you, Winnebago County Courthouse Party. I'm just disgusted. All right, Mike has been chomping at the bit to finish. I apologize.
Actually, I do know a little bit about this one. As some of you know, I'm in a pro se lawsuit against the county, First Amendment rights, and my opponent is also named as one of the defendants. So I've been going through the court system, and I understand what's going on with this. And yes, sadly, the state's attorney office defends people that are in public office, whether they're innocent or guilty. That's what they do. Now, the funny thing is, I thought the state's attorney's office was elected to defend the Constitution and to defend the rights of the people. but they do that other job. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that job at all, but that's what they do. And the second unfortunate in that is, because of that system, any government official has a two-part safety net to allow them to do what they want when they shouldn't. One, if they do something wrong, the state's attorney comes to their aid and protects them. And two, if that doesn't work, there's a big insurance policy. They just file and settle out of court. You know, so they can try to do something that they want to do, even knowing that it might not be right. And then they've got two safety nets to try and get away with it. I think that's wrong. Obviously, I think that's wrong. So yes, and I do know a little bit about your the people that you're talking about, and they do have a lawsuit. I don't know if they filed it yet. You may be correct. They've already filed it. And I've heard from people in police departments that there's a lot of problems in the sheriff's department, and it's a shame.
Thank you.
5-second follow-up.
Oh, by the way, does everybody think that this is really quite a nice sweater vest that David's wearing today?
I'm not endorsing.
Okay, the county board has many responsibilities and duties, and I wanted to ask each of you, well, first of all, what duty of the county board takes up the largest share of the budget, or is the most important, and what have you done or what do you plan to do to reduce the expense of executing that duty?
The whole criminal justice arena, these are state mandates that we have to do, and that's how our dollars are consumed, upwards of 80%. And that, of course, is everything from law enforcement to the courts, to probation, on and on, to jail, etc. So that is a big share of everything. We have been able to cut that. We've got, for example, the Sheriff's Department was, I think, 38 million in 08, and that's now 29. So there have been reductions. We went across the board with those, and we're going to continue to look for that. Now, unfortunately, we got this phenomenon where we've got 1,000 inmates, and that's something that we're meeting on regularly. When I say we, the chief judge, now we've got Judge McGraw that I'm very excited about coming in, an excellent judge, and he's got some ideas on slowing down these continuances and getting these cases through quickly. So it really takes that kind of team effort because they all are interconnected. The state's attorney's office, the public defender, you've got clerks, you've got probation people, on and on. Beyond that, this economic development, I've made a very special time set aside for that. We were never really involved in it in the county in all those years. We had a little loan fund, and that was about it. Now we're an aggressive partner. We're able to negotiate host fees that provided us some leverage on that. And we've produced about 6,000 jobs since I've been in office, and we had potential of 5,000 on a project at Baxter at 39 right now. And manufacturing is coming back. That is the good news. We have 100 CNC openings in this town right now. Now, those of you who've been here a long time know, could you ever believe you couldn't find a machine operator in Rockford, Illinois? We're back to education. We've got 53% of these kids dropping out. We've got to fix that. We're out there recruiting jobs, asking our companies to expand, but if we can't provide the skill sets, the workers, it's not going to work. They're going to move. It's too easy to move out there. That's what we're fighting for.
Thank you, Scott. And Mike, please respond.
Here.
That's Mike.
Casey has taken important notes. I'm not aware of the costs that are being spent as far as what's the biggest thing on the budget. I will tell you what I am aware of. In 2009, when I attended a number of county board meetings, I watched the expenditures that were going on for public works, roads, expansions, refixing and stuff like that. And one of my concerns in general was that when the resolutions would come before the board, the chairperson of the Public Works at that time, which was Pearl Hawk, she's not now, would get up there and say something like, Resolution 41265, and I so move. Yes or no? Who knows what 46125 is? Who knows how much is being spent? I don't know if they're fixing a drain on Main Street or if they're building $1 million road on Riverside. I have no idea. I think things like that need to be brought out in the open. I think there needs to be more transparency in the government. I think there needs to be more input from the citizens. If 41625 is a road project that's going to cost $150,000, then we better know where it is, how much it's costing, and be honest and open about what tax money we're spending. So I think more honesty and transparency about the expenditures of the county government will help bring it down, because then they will have to be accountable for what they're doing with their money and not wasteful. I'd like to see that change, and if I'm elected, I will.
Thank you.
Huge population of people that are like on free lunch and this and that. So, and when you make a tax proposal, so often the tax officials, they think that people's behavior is going to be static. So if you put in this huge huge income tax, it will drive the highest people that have the highest income tax to leave. So then the rest of us that are sort of in the middle will be sinking by that point. So how do you speak to that issue? I guess that's my question.
Thank you, and we're already sinking.
Well, the obvious answer is lower the taxes, period, no matter what it is. And of course, we've tried to do that. Our rate, by the way, now is lower than it was 20 years ago. And we actually levied less dollars this year than last year. Hard dollars, less dollars. Okay, now property values going down, that kind of phenomenon, that's not the county board's issue. But dollars spent were less than last year. We did not even spend what tax caps allow us to spend. We didn't levy that full amount. We're less than that. 2 years back to back. Matter of fact, this county board, these folks right here, voted to eliminate pensions. So there's no more pensions. Out of 102 counties in the state, I believe I'm correct, Winnebago is the only one with no pension for county board members. Very credit to them. They also voted 8 of them out of work. So from 28, we'll be voting on 20 single-member districts this fall. Again, that's going to take some work and some thought. But I can tell you, at one time, we figured it out several years ago, and to replace the county's portion of property taxes was about $3 a week, something like that. So there needs to be work done, but I can tell you this property tax thing's out of control. And we have, in particular, seniors, fixed incomes are being taxed out of their homes. And there are plenty of programs, and I don't mean to poo-poo, we have to have a safety net. But there's plenty of programs for those folks that aren't quite at the income levels. So we need to start taking care of the middle class. That's what's under siege in this country. That's what holds it all together.
Mike? Let's give Mike a chance to answer. Yep, thank you.
Property taxes hit me too. Now, you don't have to do a show of hands, but I'm paying about $6,000 a year. Anybody doing more? You can trump that? I'm sorry for you. I really am. Yes, they did just shrink the county number of members from 28 down to 20. However, they also gave a pay increase to those 20. And it ends up being almost a wash is how much it costs the taxpayers. I think that was wrong. I think cutting them out was fine. But I'm sorry that there was a pay increase. And yes, the tax rates were increased twice last year by the county. Now, the tax assessor's office brought us down mostly about 4.9% on our tax assessment rates for our house, which was good, but it's not far enough. I've talked to many real estate people that say property values in the area have dropped between 10, 15, maybe even 20%. So to decrease our property value tax by 5% is not keeping up with what's going on. We should be paying lower taxes. As far as offsetting it with a sales tax increase, or income tax rate increase, I don't see that that's going to happen as far as practical. But there's other ways that money comes into the county that if it's not wasted or given away could help. For example, drink water here. For example, we're now filling up our landfills with Chicago garbage. I'm not happy with that. I think that was kind of run through without everybody's input, but it was done at a discount. Why was it done at a discount? Why was there a token price given when it should have been full price or a premium? Since we're benefiting them, they're getting the gain out of this. And why wasn't that difference that was given away, as I understood from one article, $1.5 million? Why couldn't that have been used to offset property taxes? You know, there's other creative ways to get our taxes down. when you can't mandate it. I can't go to the school board and say you have to charge less tax. I wouldn't be able to do that, but trust me, I will try.
Let me just, before I take the last question from Mike over there, let me just challenge you both on something. You're both wrong, okay?
Hey, good word.
You're both dead wrong, and I don't like it when people are not telling us the complete story, okay? Number one, let me tell you how property taxes work. There's a window by which you can assess a property tax. There's a range of a percentage. And depending upon how your economy is doing, the assessor can say, well, we're going to go with the higher side of this range that's within the law. On top of that, this is a quote from the paper, okay? He said the value of his home has increased $40,000 from what he paid for it 10 years ago, even though he's made no improvements. That means that the assessor said, your home's worth $40,000 more, so guess what? We're going to charge this, well, we just reduced your property tax rate by 0.0001%, but we're going to go ahead and assess you a higher rate on your tax on your home, and we're going to make a little bit, it's going to be the same, so that you can pay all those people that need to be paid, okay, within county government. Okay, really the biggest cost in county government is labor. Okay, biggest cost in schools is labor. Teachers, I don't care what anybody tells you. Teachers in Rockford Public Schools, there are teachers in Rockford Public Schools making $130,000, $140,000, $150,000 a year. I've got the hardcore numbers. There are people in Rock Valley College at their college making $120,000, $130,000, $140,000 a year. Not a lot, but the average at Rock Valley College is $75,000 as a wage, as a gross wage, $75,000, and they only work 16 weeks or 32 weeks. That's based on two 4-month semesters. So all I'm saying to you guys is that these people here paying property taxes, and the assessor decide, and that's not your fault necessarily, because you don't hire the assessor. I believe the assessor is elected. Is that correct? The assessor says, well, we're going to assess your home at a higher value. So what happens is people go and they contest the assessments, and that's what this whole story in the paper is about. You're able to contest your assessments. Well, there was something like 1,600 people in here that says contested their assessments, which now that means because of that contest, they're going to lose revenue at all levels of government. County government, like he said, is not taking the lion's share of your local tax, property tax. It's the school district. Okay. 5%. Yeah, it's a school district. But it is the assessor, the county assessor, who assesses that. Okay. So I like the whole story to be told when we tell that story. So if you want to respond to that, Scott, please do.
No,
just give him a second to respond.
No,
then I have one more question for Michael.
The whole story here is
then
right.
you can ask.
What we do, just like any board legislatively, we submit an amount. Okay, the extension office, which is in the county clerk's office, determines the rates. Now, what is our problem? Think about our problem right here in Rockford, Winnebago County. We have so many industrial buildings with no value. So if you think by them lowering those helps us, it doesn't. All that does is make us as homeowners pay more. So our problem is on an economic development level, we've got to get into rehabilitation, demolition. It's been said Rockford's not underdeveloped, it's under-demolished. We've got to take care of that blight. It'll help us on the crime side, but more importantly, that builds the base. The pie becomes bigger, so we all pay less of a portion. So that is absolutely correct. It's based on the pie. And that's why we've got to work, I mean, this is all units of local government, to expand our economy, so hopefully we get some of these buildings, whether they're Amrock, Tapco, whatever down here, either back in place in the market or down, where there's something else that can take its place. That's absolutely killing our tax base. In fact, it's going down another 9%, I think, this year in Rockford.
One last question. Mike, go ahead.
I heard it mentioned
You
that.
can answer this first.
I heard it mentioned that the county board voted to eliminate pensions. My question for all the county board candidates is regardless of whether you're an incumbent or running to get elected to the county board, in regards to the issue of receiving a pension, in light of what had been voted to eliminate those pensions, would you not be taking a pension even if you received one to date?
Go ahead, Mike.
First off, I'll acknowledge I don't know what the status is on pensions at the county board. And honestly, I don't even know what the pay is for the county board chairman. I've asked not to know that. I don't want to be influenced by that. I don't care if it's $1 a year, 10,000 or 20,000, what the thing is. I have no idea. That's not my motivation. If there is a pension already there in place, would I take it? I probably would. You know, I'm not opposed to obeying the laws if it's there. If there's no pension there, am I going to push for one? Absolutely not. You know, I'm only going to be there for 4 years. You know, I don't think I've earned a pension. That's a 30-year job. You know, that kind of thing. What I also would like to do is, when we talk about the budget for the county board, as I mentioned, there were pay raises for the county board members. I would ask, if elected, for those county members to give back that pay raise, to repeal that pay raise, and whatever that amount was, and I don't think it was a great amount. You, John, probably helped me with this. Was it $1,000 or something like that a year, ballpark?
It was $1,000 per member, having reduced the size of the board by 32%. It was 17% increase over a 10-year period. So over that 10 years, it's 1.7%.
Okay. What I would do is I would reduce my own salary by double that amount. So I'm not going to ask them to do something and me not to do it. I'll take twice as much as they're taking out of theirs from my salary. And the other issue that we were talking about was the
Property tax rates.
The property tax rate.
Assessments.
Yes, there's two parts that come into that. There's the assessment rate, which comes from the assessor's office, and there's the tax rate that's determined by each individual governing body. And that's the one that I'm saying that the county last year raised their tax rate twice. The assessor lowered it. Unfortunately, one washed the other out, and I think we still ended up with a net gain in taxes. I think mine went up still, and that's not the way it should be.
Scott, would you like to respond to the pension issue and the pay issue?
Yes. Yeah, we've been very bad on that. I can tell you in a county, our average bargaining unit in AFSCME is about $30,000 a year annual salary. Top to bottom, take all of county government is just over 40. That's everyone. County board chairman's job doesn't even make the top 100, and that's never been of interest to me. When I was on the board, I did not opt for pensions. There's one that goes there now, but it's very interesting how this works. In IMRF, like everything seems to get so complicated, there's about 14 different funds, and the one we're involved in is almost 90% funded. We just pay every year. We pay it what it is. We pay it. It's done. But I think you've got to be 40-some years in age, and you get to 75% is the county formula, something of that sort.
Scott, take a minute to wrap up who you are, and then Mike, you take a minute, and then we're going to close up.
We are really in challenging times, and I appreciate all you being here, your questions and your concerns. I'm a lifelong Winnebago County resident, and one of our biggest attributes is the volunteer spirit that comes out. I've seen it from our Great American Cleanup to what's going on with Parkland Church and our schools. And just this week, we had a tremendous session, the Chamber's annual meeting, where Dr. Willis talked about the 5 rocks. Our future is totally the education system. In fact, when I'm talking about economic development anymore, I am bringing up education first. Education and career training. One of the biggest mistakes we made was getting away from vocational training. Nearly 80% of our kids don't go on to college. That's a fact. It would be wonderful if they all did, but they don't. Well, we've eliminated those types of things. So those are coming back, and I know Dr. Willis agrees with me on that, and we're going to be helping. We've got a tech work program that we help fund, fast track manufacturing. That's the golden goose. That's where the good jobs, 15 to 20. As I indicated to you, there's over 100 of those available right now. They can't be filled. Sooner or later, these companies start to look elsewhere. So that's a big challenge. We want to continue this crime issue. I mean, it's a very frustrating thing with our blight, poverty, so forth. But we've got to get to the point where these neighborhoods are safe. We'll be coming out with an initiative very soon on that County Board very wisely budgeted for in our last session. So
Thank you.
jobs and crime.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much. Mike?
Well, as I said, I haven't been in politics before. I don't have all the answers. I think what you need, though, in any elected official, this starts at the city level and goes all the way up to the president, is somebody you can trust, somebody who's a person of their word, and somebody who doesn't say one thing and do another, who doesn't say something to get elected and then go back into the same old, same old. Somebody who's not affiliated or indebted to outside companies, somebody who acts for themselves, thinks for themselves, and looks out for the citizens that elected them. I'm paying for my campaign out of my own money. It will not be a big, expensive campaign. As you've seen the flyers out there, were printed on my computer at home. And the signs I had to buy, I can't do those at home. But I am a man of my word. I was told your word is your bond. I believe there's a lot of changes that can be effected in Winnebago County to make it better for everybody, whether it be road safety, whether it be spending less and saving money so we can lower those taxes, and whatever it is, I want your input. There will be input from the county members, from the citizens to the county board if I'm elected, because I want you to be part of the process. I think that's important. I hope you'll vote for me, and I hope you'll take a yard sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Just